Sometimes the people you trust most, the ones you give your whole heart to, can be the very ones who break you the deepest. Imagine giving your time, your energy, even your financial future, only to be told you never really mattered. What would you do if your own father left you a voicemail, just 18 words long, saying you were no longer part of the family? No explanation, no second chance, no warmth in his voice. Would you beg him to take you back? Would you fight for a place you never really had? Or would you finally walk away and discover that maybe losing them was the very thing that could save you? This is the story of how one daughter, discarded by her own family, turned their rejection into freedom. My name is Emma Carter, and I was 25 years old the night the message came. It was a Thursday evening, exactly 7:42 p.m., when my phone lit up. The words were sharp and cold, delivered in my father's voice like he was reading a statement at a business meeting. Don't bother coming to the family reunion. We're cutting ties. Click. That was it. 18 words. 18 syllables if you count the pause before he hung up. Played it again. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I thought maybe hearing it a second time would stir something inside me. Anger. Betrayal. A heavy pain in my chest. But no, none of that came. What I felt instead was stillness. Like some quiet part of me had been waiting for this moment all along. I didn't call him back. I didn't beg for answers. I didn't even forward the message to my mother, Margaret, who usually kept her head down whenever my father turned family matters into business orders. Instead, I typed 2 words into my phone and hit send. All right. And that was it. No argument. No fight. Just those 2 words. Then I opened my laptop, logged into a loan portal I hadn't touched in months, and did the one thing they never expected me to do. I removed my name. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. But because in that moment, clarity hit me harder than anything else. See, 2 years earlier, my father, Richard Carter, had been pushing to expand the family business Carter Auto, a regional auto chain based in Portland, Oregon. He had built the company from nothing, first as a local mechanic, then a small dealership, then finally into a growing franchise. And when the bank required a second signer for a $2.5 million expansion loan, they didn't look at my older brother, Daniel. Daniel's credit was ruined from years of reckless spending, and my father didn't want to risk his personal assets. So naturally, they looked at me. I had the spotless financial record. I had the master's degree. I was the reliable one. They didn't ask me. They didn't even explain. They just slid the papers in front of me, uncapped a pen and waited. And I signed, because back then I still believed that loyalty meant love. That if I gave enough, if I sacrificed enough, I would finally earn my place, not just as the helper, not just as the background support, but as a real part of the family. But sitting alone at my small kitchen table that Thursday night, my father's voicemail still echoing faintly in the background, I realized the truth. They hadn't cut me off that night. They had been cutting me out for years. My father wasn't a man who loved family, not really. He loved control. He built the business the same way he built our house. Brick by brick, rule by rule, with no room for softness. He had a saying he liked to repeat, especially in front of employees. We don't hire outsiders. We raise replacements. That was supposed to be me and Daniel. His replacements. At least in theory. Daniel was older by 3 years. Loud, charming, reckless. The kind of man who could mess up big and still laugh his way out of it. And my father loved that. Because Daniel reminded him of himself. So Daniel got the praise. He got the second chances. He got the freedom to fail over and over. And me? I got the clipboard. By 12, I was logging shipments into spreadsheets. By 16, I was handling payroll for our 3rd location while my friends were at the beach. I didn't ask for it. I didn't volunteer. I was told. And every time my mother would take me aside and whisper, "Be grateful, Emma. Your father is building something for us." So I tried to be grateful. I worked harder. I studied late. I earned my MBA. I even turned down a dream job offer in Seattle because my father reminded me, family before ambition. Daniel was focused on vision. I was expected to focus on everything else. When the business expanded, I was the one who found the new headquarters. I negotiated the lease. I secured favorable terms from the bank. I even locked in a 3-year interest freeze. And when the bank required a second signer, there I was again. Papers. A pen. My name. No thank you. No recognition. No conversation. Just another expectation. And I was still naive enough to believe that if I gave them everything one day, they would finally see me. But invisibility is not belonging. It's erasure. And soon I would realize just how far they were willing to go to erase me completely. The first real crack didn't come with anger. It came with laughter. Daniel's laughter. We were in a quarterly budget meeting, just me, my father, and Daniel. I had flagged a duplicate payment, about $12,000 repeated over 3 months. To me, it was a clear mistake that needed fixing. Daniel just smirked, leaned back in his chair, and waved it off. That's from a buddy of mine. Just let it slide. He gives us good deals on other stuff. I looked at my father, waiting for him to say something, to question it, to at least frown. But he didn't. He just sipped his coffee and said, "Focus on bigger things, Emma. Stop acting like an outsider." That word outsider didn't just sting. It cut straight through me. I wasn't an outsider. I had carried payroll through supply chain delays. I had negotiated better vendor rates. I had overseen 4 new expansions. And yet, the moment I questioned Daniel's friend, I was the stranger in the room. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I started noticing little changes. My access to certain systems stopped working. My financial dashboard switched to read-only. The company credit card tied to my name expired, and nobody replaced it. Every time I asked, I got excuses. "We're restructuring. It's temporary. Don't worry about it." But Daniel? He suddenly had a brand new standing desk, a luxury office chair, a company-paid leadership summit in Las Vegas. That was when I knew. They weren't just cutting me out. They were preparing the door. And it only opened one way. So I started keeping copies, invoices, emails, budget reports. Anytime Daniel signed a client email using my name, I saved it. Every time a vendor charge looked suspicious, I logged it. At night, I organized them into a folder on my personal computer. I called it the shadow ledger. I didn't know what I was building yet, an escape plan maybe, or just an alibi. But I knew one thing. If they were going to push me out, I wanted the truth in my hands. And soon, the truth would reveal itself in a way I could never ignore. It was a Thursday morning in early spring when the truth finally surfaced. Outside my office window, trees were just starting to bloom, bright green leaves brushing against the glass. It should have been a day that felt fresh, hopeful. Instead, that was the morning everything changed. I got my monthly credit summary, something I usually skimmed out of habit, never with concern. But this time, a strange line caught my eye. Carter Holdings Deferred Payment Review. Carter Holdings. I hadn't seen that name in years. It was an old shell company my father once used for side projects, supposedly inactive. Curious, I dug deeper. And what I found wasn't just odd. It was devastating. The very $2.5 million loan I had co-signed 2 years earlier. The expansion loan was 3 months behind on payments. 3 months. They were juggling overdue balances, keeping things afloat with grace periods and vendor delays. And worse, my name was still tied to the loan. They were using my clean credit as a shield, as a safety net, while they let the business sink. But I hadn't been given access to financial reports in months. I hadn't been invited to board meetings since the previous fall. The last time I asked Daniel for an update, he texted me a single line. "No worries, sis. Big vision coming, winking face." But vision doesn't pay bills. So I started digging deeper. I compared invoices against the projections I had built myself years earlier. And the more I compared, the more I realized this wasn't just sloppy accounting. It was manipulation. There were over $40,000 in consulting fees funneled through one of Daniel's friends. Invoices labeled marketing tests with no campaigns attached. Fleet repairs billed 3 times for the same vehicles. Vendor quotes signed with my initials, ones I never approved. This wasn't negligence. It was deliberate. That same afternoon, I called an old classmate from my Stanford days, Rachel Lawson. She had gone into law and once helped her sister sort through a messy real estate collapse. I didn't tell her the full story, just enough to ask a simple question. If someone co-signed a business loan and wanted to pull out, what would happen? There was a pause on the line. Then Rachel said slowly, "Depends. If you're not listed as a guarantor and you haven't been part of any misuse, the bank can reevaluate the loan without you. Quietly. Legally." I remember exhaling like I hadn't breathed in months. For the first time, I realized there might actually be a door, a way out. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Maybe I wasn't building an escape plan. Maybe I was building the truth. From then on, I met Rachel in person. We sat in a corner booth at a quiet cafe near the courthouse in downtown Portland. I slid the documents across the table, the invoices, the fake signatures, the overdue balances. She flipped through them carefully, her lips pressed into a tight line. When she reached the loan agreement, she stopped. "Emma," she said, looking me dead in the eyes, "you're not listed as a guarantor." My heart skipped. Meaning? Meaning they used your name to secure the loan. But you're not legally responsible if you withdraw before restructuring. I blinked at her. "And if I do?" Rachel leaned forward, her voice steady but sharp. "Then you don't argue. You don't warn. You don't give them the chance to cover their tracks. You just move the brick holding up their wall and let it fall." Her words didn't sound like revenge. They sounded like freedom. That night, I went home and renamed my folder. No longer the shadow ledger. Now it was the redemption plan. Inside, I organized every file. PDFs, screenshots, flagged emails. At the very top, I placed a draft letter Rachel had helped me prepare weeks earlier, back when I was still unsure. But I wasn't unsure anymore, because now I understood the truth. They hadn't cut me out of the family that Thursday night. They had used me until I had nothing left to give. And maybe I had nothing left to give them, but I still had one thing left to take back. My name. It only took 4 minutes. That's how long the loan portal stayed open. Once I logged in with the admin credentials I'd set up during the expansion phase. Back then, I thought that kind of access meant trust. Now it was the very thing that set me free. The screen flickered, then loaded. Co-applicant status. Active. Modification options. Available. My hand didn't even shake. I clicked remove. Then I uploaded the signed withdrawal letter Rachel and I had finalized. Typed my PIN. Hit submit. No siren. No warning. Just a gray line of text at the bottom. Update received. Processing pending compliance review. And that was it. Done. The next step was risk control. I drafted a clean, professional email to the bank's loan officer, Robert Hensley. He'd worked with me directly during the expansion. I attached everything: the discrepancies, the vendor fraud, the forged signatures, the restricted access. I didn't rant. I didn't accuse. I laid it out like numbers on a sheet. Calm, factual, undeniable. Within an hour, the bank froze the operating account tied to Carter Holdings and opened an internal review. No call to my father. No heads up to Daniel. Just silence in the system they had been abusing for so long. While they scrambled, I secured myself. I called my personal accountant, Samantha Reed, a friend from grad school. Together, we ran worst-case scenarios. She confirmed everything Rachel had said. I had no liability, no credit damage, no obligation to warn them. And thanks to the trust fund I had quietly set up years earlier for my savings, I was shielded from any fallout. That night, for the first time in years, I turned my phone on silent, really silent. And I slept. The next morning, chaos erupted. By sunrise, I already had 32 missed calls. By mid-afternoon, the count had climbed past 80. Most from my mother, some from Daniel, a few from my father, and one voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was from Howard Ellis, their longtime company accountant. His voice was frantic, almost breaking. "Emma, call me back immediately. This is serious. The bank froze the loan. We're at risk of default. You need to fix this. Do you understand? You have to fix this." Played it twice. Not because I didn't understand what he meant, but because it sounded like justice. And justice doesn't scream. It echoes. By evening, Daniel finally texted me. "What the hell did you do?" 5 minutes later. "You're overreacting. We could have handled this internally." But that word "we" didn't land anymore. There hadn't been a "we" in a very long time. Later that night, my mother called. Her voice wasn't angry, it was trembling. "Sweetheart, what's happening? Your father says the bank froze everything. They might recall the loan. Did you sign something?" I answered calmly. "I removed my name. That's all." Her breath caught. "But you can't just do that." "Actually," I said, "I can." And I did. She tried again, her voice breaking. "Emma, this affects all of us." "No," I said softly. "You made sure it didn't." And then I hung up. Not in anger. Not in spite. Just completion. The first face-to-face came faster than I expected. It was Saturday morning when I heard the knock. Not a gentle knock. Pounding. When I opened the door, Daniel was standing there. His shirt half-buttoned, hair unwashed, eyes bloodshot. He didn't even wait to be invited in. He pushed past me, his voice already rising. "What the hell were you thinking?" I closed the door slowly, steadying myself. "Good morning to you too." "Don't play smart with me," he snapped, spinning around. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The vendors are calling. Payroll's due in 3 days. The bank wants collateral." I folded my arms. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before forging my initials on contracts." His face went pale. For just a second. Then he scoffed. "You can't prove that." "Oh, but I can." I walked to the counter, lifted the folder, the redemption plan, and slid it toward him. Every invoice, every email, every false report, neatly indexed. He stared at it but didn't touch it. "You're bluffing." I met his eyes, steady and unflinching. "No, Daniel. I'm done bluffing. That's your game, not mine." By Sunday afternoon, the rest of them showed up. My father, stiff in a navy suit, as if dressing for control would restore it. My mother, clutching her purse like it was a shield. Daniel, trailing behind, muttering under his breath. We sat around my dining table, the same one I once dreamed would host family dinners, laughter, maybe even children's birthdays. Instead, it had become a battlefield. My father started. His voice clipped, professional, the way it always was when he wanted to sound reasonable. "Emma, listen. What you did was rash. Yes, there are some cash flow issues, but freezing the loan only makes things worse. We can fix this together." I shook my head. "There hasn't been a together for a long time." My mother leaned forward, her eyes pleading. "Sweetheart, your brother is under a lot of pressure. You know how hard it is to keep a business afloat. Can't you just undo this?" I almost laughed. "Undo it?" Like it was a button I'd pressed by accident. "Mom, he didn't just mismanage things. He stole. He lied. And you both let him." Daniel slammed his fist on the table. "I built that company. I carried the weight while you ran off to your fancy schools. You think you're better than us because you can put numbers in a spreadsheet." I leaned forward. "No, Daniel. I think I'm better than you because I don't lie to the people who trust me." His jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Then my father tried a different tactic. The one that had always worked before. "You're being emotional," he said calmly, almost softly. "This isn't about betrayal. It's about business. And business requires sacrifice. We all sacrifice for the family." I felt something inside me snap. Not in anger but in clarity. "All sacrifice?" I asked. "Or just me?" He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. When Daniel needed tuition for grad school, who gave up her savings? I did. When the company needed expansion capital, who risked her credit? I did. When the numbers didn't add up, who worked late nights fixing them while you two looked the other way? I did. I looked each of them in the eye. And when it came time to protect me, who stood up? Who defended me? Silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy. Unavoidable. True. Finally, my mother broke it. Her voice small, trembling. We thought Daniel just needed time. We didn't want to cause division." I shook my head slowly. "You caused division the moment you chose him over honesty." "Over me." Daniel laughed bitterly. "God, you love playing the victim." I turned to him, my voice steady. "No, Daniel. Victims stay quiet. I'm not quiet anymore." That night, after they left, I expected to feel relief. Or triumph. Instead, I felt empty. Because cutting ties isn't clean. It isn't a sudden burst of freedom. It's jagged, messy, slow. Like pulling shards of glass from your skin one at a time. I poured myself a glass of water, sat by the window, and listened to the city hum outside. Life was still moving. Strangers were still laughing, driving, living. My family's collapse was only monumental to us. To everyone else, it was just another night. And maybe that was the strangest part. Realizing how small the storm feels once you step outside it. The fallout came quickly. By Monday morning, the bank had officially placed Carter Holdings under review. Payments were suspended, assets frozen, and every executive, including Daniel, was summoned for questioning. I wasn't summoned, because legally I wasn't part of it anymore. But I still received updates from Rachel. Each one felt like another brick crumbling from the wall they had built. Daniel was facing fraud allegations. My father's reputation in the business community was unraveling. My mother had stopped answering calls. And me? I was free. Not untouched, not unscarred, but free. A week later, I met Rachel again. Same cafe, same corner booth. She slid a folder toward me. "It's done," she said. "You're clear. Your name's off everything. They can't touch you." I traced my finger over the folder's edge, the weight of it pressing down. "Then that's it," I whispered. Rachel studied me for a moment. "Not really. It's just the beginning. What you do next, that's the real story." That night, I sat at my desk and opened a blank document. Not for numbers. Not for invoices. Not even for legal letters. For me. The first line I typed was simple. I will not carry their weight anymore. It wasn't a business plan. It wasn't a ledger. It was a promise. And for the first time in my life, it was a promise I made to myself. But here's the thing about endings. Sometimes they look like beginnings. Because while my family scrambled to salvage what was left, I was already sketching the framework of something new. Not revenge. Not restitution. Something that was mine. And this time I wouldn't need anyone's approval. Not my father's. Not my mother's. Not Daniel's. Just mine. 3 weeks later, the Carter name was everywhere, for all the wrong reasons. Headlines about fraud investigations, collapsed family empire, and executive misconduct scrolled across every local business page. Every time I walked by a newsstand, I caught the whispers. Once, I even saw my father's face on a magazine cover, the caption reading, "From Powerhouse to Ruins." And me? I was a ghost in the story. My name barely mentioned. Protected. Invisible. Exactly where I wanted to be. The final unraveling came on a Thursday morning. Rachel called first thing. "They filed formal charges," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Daniel for fraud, falsifying documents, and misrepresentation to the bank. Your father for complicity in financial mismanagement. Your mother isn't being charged, but she's listed as a witness." I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the sunlight stretching across the floor. It felt surreal. All those years of being dismissed, silenced, sacrificed, and now the truth had teeth. What happens next? I asked quietly. Rachel exhaled. "They'll fight. They'll deny. But the evidence is strong. And Emma," she paused, "this doesn't touch you. You're free." The words should have made me feel triumphant. Instead, they landed heavy, because freedom, it turned out, was complicated. A week later, I walked past the old Carter Holdings office building. The glass windows reflected the gray sky, but inside the lights were dark. A padlock hung on the front doors. For years, that building had been the stage for every family demand. Every time they told me to help out, just for a little while. Every time I was told family comes first, when really it meant Daniel came first. Now it was silent. Empty. I stood there for a long time. Not in mourning. Not in nostalgia. In something else. Something that felt like release. By then, I'd already started sketching the outlines of my new life. I called it Clarity Consulting. A small firm. My firm. No board members, no legacy strings, no manipulative older brother calling the shots. I built it in my own apartment at first, working late nights at the same kitchen table where my family once tried to break me down. I built a website, reached out to small businesses, offered the kind of honest financial guidance I had begged my family to listen to. The clients came slowly at first. A florist struggling with seasonal debts. A cafe owner who wanted to expand but didn't know how. Each one reminded me why I had studied numbers in the first place. Not for profit margins or power plays, but because numbers, when handled right, gave people peace. And peace was something I knew the value of better than anyone. But the true test came when my family tried one last time to pull me back. It was late evening when the phone rang. I almost didn't answer when I saw my father's name, but curiosity won. His voice was rough, tired, nothing like the commanding tone I grew up with. "Emma," he said. "Just my name. No lecture, no pretense." "Yes." There was a pause. Then, "We need your help." The words landed like a stone dropped in water. Ripples of old reflexes surged up inside me, the instinct to step in, fix, sacrifice. But then I remembered Rachel's words. I remembered the locked office. I remembered every time they had chosen silence instead of standing by me. No, I said. Calm, clear, final. My father inhaled sharply. Emma, please. We're family. I closed my eyes. The old pain twisted, but it didn't control me anymore. No, I repeated. We were family. But family doesn't break you and then expect you to save them. Before he could reply, I ended the call. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. The days that followed were strangely quiet. No angry knocks at my door. No desperate voicemails. No pleading emails. Just silence. And in that silence, I found something I had never been given before. Space. Space to dream. Space to breathe. Space to build. 6 months later, Clarity Consulting had a small office of its own. Nothing glamorous. Just a modest space with wide windows and sunlight that poured in every morning. On the wall, I hung one framed piece of paper. Not my degree. Not a certificate. It was the first page I had typed the night I decided to break away. The one that began with the line, "I will not carry their weight anymore." Clients asked about it sometimes. I would smile and say, "That's my mission statement." And in a way it was. I never attended Daniel's trial. I didn't need to. The outcome trickled to me through Rachel, through articles, through whispers. Guilty. Reputation shattered. Money gone. But none of it felt like victory, because victory implies you were playing their game. I wasn't. I had built a new one. One evening, after locking up the office, I walked down the street to the cafe that had become my second home. The owner, my first real client, waved at me as I walked in. The smell of coffee and fresh bread filled the air. I sat at my usual table, opened my notebook, and started sketching plans for what came next. Maybe a workshop series for young entrepreneurs. Maybe a mentorship program for women who had been told, like me, that their voice didn't matter. The possibilities stretched out like an open road. And for the first time, the future didn't scare me. Felt like mine. Here's what I learned. Sometimes the people who raise you will betray you. Sometimes the ones you sacrifice for will let you burn. And sometimes you have to let the whole house collapse so you can finally walk out of the rubble and breathe. I wasn't the savior of the Carter legacy. I wasn't the scapegoat, either. I was Emma Carter, and I was finally free.